Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 17th, 2020 meeting of the Gaithersburg Planning Commission. Based on our video feed, we have a pretty solid roll call, so we don't need to do that. First up is the approval of our minutes from the June 3rd, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion from one of the commissioners, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of June 3rd, 2020 as read into the record.
Second.
Danny, seconded. Great. Commissioner Wessel?
Aye.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman?
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn?
Aye.
And I will vote aye as well. That passes unanimously. Thanks very much. We have one item on the site plan agenda tonight, and that's an amendment to final site plan for SP-8250-2019 to satisfy a condition of approval and minor site revisions for the senior living apartment building at 10100 Washingtonian Boulevard in the MXD mixed use development zone. And again, this is an amendment to final site plan. Jasmine, you're up to present, is that right?
Yes, I am.
Great, thanks. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm going to wait till we have everyone up from the project team on the screen before I start. Okay, all right. Can I have the presentation up, please? All right, so good evening. This is for application SP-8250-2019, requesting approval to construct a 310-unit senior living apartment building. Next page, please. As shown on the aerial, the subject property is located right at the corner of Sam Mike Highway and Washingtonian Boulevard. The Planning Commission had approved this site plan on December 4th of 2019 with 4 conditions. And one of those conditions was the applicant to resubmit exterior building and color materials to the Planning Commission for review and approval. During that December 4th meeting, the Planning Commission had some comments about the proposed ephes on the top levels of the building, which was proposed to mimic the brick texture, and the Commission wanted the applicant to relook at those materials and come back with a revised plan. So this evening, the applicant's going to present revised plans, which is exhibit 16 and 17 in the packet, and I will have Scott Wallace start the presentation. And can I have the next page, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Scott Wallace with law firm of Miles and Stockbridge, presenting with me on behalf of the applicant, which is a joint venture of SHA Capital Partners and Kisco Senior Living. Presenting tonight will be Alejandro Giraldo and Brendan McCall with THW Architects. Available off the screen are Doug Cooper with SHA and Joe Whitehouse with Kisco, and also Dan Pino and Jokita Sharma with the civil engineering firm for Soltez. If you could move to the next slide, please. Just again, to remind you of the context and location of the site, we are on the north side of Sam Mike Highway, across from Washingtonian Rio Center and Crown Farm. Malcolm King Park is to the north, and the Shady Grove Village Townhouse Community and Washingtonian Village single family detached community is to the south and west of the site. Camden Living has a multifamily apartment building on the site as well, and Lifetime Fitness along Sam Mike Highway. If you could move to the next slide, please. Again, the site plan, rendered site plan showing the building with independent living, memory care, and assisted living units on the site. And this was what was approved initially in December. If you could move to the next slide, please. Since that approval, we've made some minor footprint modifications to adjust for balcony, long-term care drop-off location, sidewalk alignments, very minor modifications. And also the parking garage has been redesigned to become more efficient and to pick up some additional parking spaces and allow for two-way circulation. If you could move to the next slide, please. As Jasmine mentioned, as a condition of approval of the site plan, we were asked to come back to show the exterior, approval of the exterior building elevations and color and materials before issuance of building permits, and also to show you the product selection for the retaining wall. With that, I'll turn it over to Alejandro Giraldo with THW Architects, and they'll walk through the architecture for the project. Alejandro.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alejandro Giraldo, and I work with THW Design, the architects of the project. In this slide, what we're showing is, I may refer back to 4 in a moment, but generally speaking, this slide is representing the kind of final selection for the stone. And last time, this is similar to the last slide that you saw, but this is the final product that we picked for the retaining wall. And we actually feel it's a very nice complement, not just to the site design, but also to the architecture. Next slide. This is a very familiar view, I think, for all of you at this point. What we did is took the views that we developed before and started looking into those materials. As per the last conversation or the last meeting in December, there was some intent of trying to represent some of the brick on the texture on the, I'm going to say the body of the building, the centerpiece. And so we actually went back and studied the color selection, went through that. And I'd like to say that this view stays and remains as true to the design intent from an architectural standpoint as we always have wanted originally. So we look into several different materials in here, but the main element here is composed by, on the right portion of the column, you see we have the kind of designated the 3 materials that pretty much develop this building from bottom to top. One is the bottom piece that is the cast stone piece that is always associated to the main level. Then on the upper levels, you see the body of the building where it's now represented with these, the true EIFS textures and colors that are actually, again, complementary among each other, but as well as representing having this strong appeal that we've always been looking for this building. There's a couple things I feel like are important to highlighting here in terms of that is we went back and looked into some of the detailing of that EIFS, also some of the joints, and again, very putting a lot of attention to that, your comments in terms of that, but also the base and the pedestrian approach, what you can perceive from a pedestrian standpoint and arrival and those elements with the cast stone as well. I think we can go up to the next slide. I'm going to be touching similar points, but with different views. This is the view, the main view of the entry of the building. We have been, again, working on adjusting some of the basic elements in the building just through the natural design development process we've been going through. And so with that, we've been working more in the interiors. We're working on, obviously, structural and systems, but that structural work also allowed us to do the adjustment of the parking and rotating the grid and developing that parking that we discussed a couple meetings ago that could be improved. And I think it was improved pretty well as part of this process. So in this view, again, I want you to kind of focus your attention on those elements that we are now, again, developing in terms of textures, colors, and trying to maintain that strong sense of arrival, strong sense of base, body, and I call it the hat or the top of the building, which is trying to maintain those proportions and colors as true as the original design. Next slide. This other view is kind of the opposite view as you arrive aerial, so you can capture more of the building elements. We, again, we maintain the main components. We still have, again, the really strong base element, the cast stone, the glazing, and the EIFS color actually, I think, represented in different textures, as we're going to show in the next slide. We have a little diagram trying to explain a little better how we got to the specific textures and I'm going to say colors of the building. Next. This slide in here, we have 2 slides that are trying to represent the different, some of the analysis we've been going through for the building. So this is more in detail about how we're going to address that cast stone base. And so the image on the left, you can see is a representation of a building that somehow shows the use of this material. But obviously, our building is unique in that nature. So we have a very detailed and customized base for this building where we have a nice water table component. You have the body of that piece, some scoring lines defining the verticality and the horizontality of the building, and then the coping piece, which is that 20-inch element atop that kind of defines that base. So on the left, you can see the lower left, we have that's the color selection we have for that specific material, and also a little detail of how the texture of that is going to look like, which I think also is very complementary to, again, to the rest of the building materials that we have developed.
So just to confirm, this image, all of that represents a cast stone product in different modules, different colors, different stacking, but that's all cast stone that you're showing in that little vignette there of the on the right.
That is correct. This is the cast stone element. Yes, it's a masonry component. Yes. Next slide, please. In this rendering, we are also trying to show the different application of colors and textures. So when you look at these three, we like it to, I like actually the reference of the quarter in there so you can see the scale of the material. But the difference in here is we're trying to use different textures as well as colors. That is also helping us define those, you know, I'm going to say the sequencing of the project in terms of the vertical approach. So in some of the elements like balconies and like you see on the bottom, I'm going to say the smooth finish, it's a little lighter. It's a very smooth texture, almost like a very, very thin grain. In the middle portion, you have the low, as we call it, low texture. It's very fine, but also it's kind of transitional piece between the two. And then at the top of the building, when we use the larger grain or texture, is to try again to bring that kind of no other dimension to the top of the building, and create that kind of composition of different elements that had its own kind of I'm going to say identity. On the next slide, you can also see the way that we actually wanted to show the application of the cast stone product and be very clear about it. So if you look between the next couple of slides, I'm going to show the, you know, if you can go to next, you see this view here. The next slide is going to show you that red tone. And you know, we did it like a, you know, I'm going to say like a fire red colors to be very strong and clear to showing here. We're trying to show you how we are treating this cast stone material, which is really, again, being the most relevant piece for the pedestrian approach, for the resident approach, is what people is going to feel, is going to touch. It's a more personal experience, I think, at that level. And we're going around the building. If you don't mind going through the next couple of slides, I'll show you the same. This is the back of the building where we have we treat it exactly the same way. We have that whole base for the pedestrian use or the resident use. If you go to the next slide, you'll see how that product is stale through to the base, through to the experience of residents and the scale. Again, we're really strong about that concept. And if you keep going to the next slide, this is a view that is trying to represent the way that we're also looking into even the service area. Some of those pieces that if you go to the next slide, you click on it, you see that base is addressed in the water table, resident entries, resident courtyards as well, because the interior courtyards also are receiving this material. And one thing that's important to mention here, we have all these bioretention areas, planters, where we have is the concrete product there. So it's obviously that's a different approach, but again, that's because of the nature of that material. So that in general, I think kind of covers pretty well the general intent of the building. I like to again highlight the aspect that we, from an architectural standpoint, we're really strong about the look, feel, and we're pretty happy with the development of the project at this point, at the phase we are, and looking into maintaining those true elements and also those that intent since day one that I think we all been very excited about and be true to that as to this point. So with that, I think that's the end of the last slide.
Can you just clarify two quick things? What was modified with the balconies? And what's the second part of this? What's the lighting scheme? Are you going to have lighting on all the balconies, individual lights for each unit on the balconies, or is it more of an ambient, you know, spillover from the units themselves?
That's actually a good question. When we mentioned the changes on balconies, is really when we're going into the development of the process of the project, as we adjust some of the units, you know, and this is minor. I think we did not move anything here more than a foot, maybe in some cases. Really trying to address the size of the balconies in relation to the units, making it a little bigger, deeper, safer. You see those side walls are meant to be like for resident feel, going outside, don't feel like they're kind of hanging in the middle of space. And then the lighting, as you mentioned, we had actually been thinking about maybe more like a walking line more than a wall sconce, which is more like a beam of light, verticality without creating that flash in your face. So we're looking into something that's low, and more like, I'm going to say more like a walking, like a step light, more than a true.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Just go ahead and chime in or
Yeah, I'd like to know about the HVAC units. Are those going to be individual units for each apartment, or are they going to be on the roof for the entire project?
Well, I'm going to cover that briefly. Brendan McCall is also on the call. He can talk in more detail, but I can tell you it's a general system. It's not individual units. We're trying to keep it on all the roof elements. And if you see the roof elements that we have, I'm going to call the hat or the coping of the building,
Right.
which is something else kind of define that outline. It's also enclosing those areas and equipment, so you won't have any visibility from that. But it's all managed by those units on the roof.
Good.
Yes, Commissioner, yes, all of our rooftop equipment is screened. We don't have any ground-based equipment, if that's the nature of your question. So we are putting all the rooftop equipment behind screen walls up on the roof.
Well, what might have been leading up to also is, are there louvers on the units?
Porch?
Yeah, are there louvers on the balconies?
There will be some louvers for fresh air intake and for dryer vents and whatnot.
Okay.
Those are, I'm going to say they're pretty small. And one thing that we did, what I like about this project, the fact that we've been developing so far, the exterior envelope at this point, is that we've been actually very careful about positioning those louvers and those elements that are associated with exterior elevation to make sure that they're not falling just where, wherever the electric or the MEP or the mechanical guys want it, but it's actually planned and put in the right spot.
I appreciate
My
that.
other
And I guess
question-
I'm trying to clarify the scale, if the louvers are more like through all units or if they're really just fresh air and exhaust.
They're all fresh air. The louvers will be 4 to 6 inches.
Okay.
They're not going to be like a PTAC or VTAC
Right.
where it'd be a big louver.
My other question pertains to the question we had about the turning lane for the trucks at the delivery area. Can you go through that a little briefly as to what the modification was on that and how that was changed, if at all?
I'm not sure I remember that, what you were referring to on that, but
There was the rear drive aisle, I believe. We had some concerns about being able to have the trucks turn around,
okay.
be able to unload and to bring in furniture, whatever, or moving stuff.
Right. We're continuing to refine that exact design with staff, but it does function in terms of turning movements through the turning template system. Staff has asked for us to look at some of the length of it to make sure it's not too short, et cetera, and that there's proper stops. So those are just a couple final details that I think we'll wrap up with staff as we go through the final site plan. But it does work, and we're fine tuning it now. In fact, staff has pointed out some things, mainly just to make sure that we were happy with how it was operating to look at, and that's what we're doing. And to the extent we need to make any changes, we will in conjunction with staff on that.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate the clarification.
Lloyd, I think there might have been some discussion at the last meeting. I was going back to the notes. We did talk about turning and access and things, but I think it was a little bit more to do with the one-way direction of some of the angled parking in the structured parking areas, and concern that it would force people into a dead end or hard to retrace kind of path. And I know they've addressed some of that in this last plan.
Yeah.
Right, now we're going to
parking
two-way.
space.
Yeah.
Increasing parking spaces also is an added dimension that I really appreciate. That's great.
I was going to ask about that. Thanks, Lloyd. I mean, because just by virtue of changing the angle parking to perpendicular, you picked up 23 spots, and you didn't have to do any more work. That's super.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a much more efficient layout as we refine the structural grid to the building, and it allowed us to pick up approximately 10 to 11 more spots per floor, and so.
Good.
Lloyd, I might have cut you off. Did you finish your questions?
Yes, thank you. I'm fine. Thank
All
you.
right, great, thanks. Anybody else? Matt, anything? Phil, anything?
Well, I know I was one of the handful of people vehemently objecting to the fake brick pattern, so I think this is a marked improvement. The purist in me isn't thrilled with the drop off on the stone water table as you go around the back, but I can't realistically expect you to plaster the loading dock with cast stone, so I get it. I think the only thing that we want to make sure is that wherever you transition from the cast stone to what I'm assuming is EFIS, that you know, right now it's rendered all as the same color. It's rendered graphically like it looks the same. So we just need to make sure you guys get a match, so it's not a drastic difference when you transition from one to the other. Other than
Or
that,
a logical transition at inside corner or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a good point, because we actually were very careful about with the stopping and beginning of this.
Yeah.
And it's just making sure that the people that is going to perceive that is going to have it. And also the color, to your point, yes, we're working with the contractor to definitely match those colors and keep that, flow going properly.
Great, thanks. All right, any other questions for the applicant's team? I'm not seeing any hands fly up. Jasmine, did we have any, we didn't have anybody sign up from the public to comment, right?
No, we didn't.
Okay, so why don't you go ahead and formally wrap up the recommendation?
Okay, staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibit submitted, the staff report, staff findings, and staff recommendation, grant SP-8250-2019 final site plan approval, cited in compliance with sections 24-170 and 24-171 of the city zoning ordinance with one condition.
Okay, great, thanks. Commissioners, any issue with the revised elevations? I think, to echo what Phil mentioned, the not having fake brick is a big plus now. It has a little more integrity, I think, and can imagine over the life cycle of the building, it will also be easier to keep refreshed without having to paint grout joints and things like that. Matt, I saw your hand go up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just let me give a great pitch for what I think is a good design. So, love the variegation, great shadows across this facade for what is an enormous building, really a big, train of a building. It's been broken down and variegated in a really wonderful way. So, big kudos to the applicant, and especially we're constantly talking about that pedestrian touchable scale, and it's often simply just sort of talked about as a finish. You upgrade the actual finish. But this applicant has come back with a good chamfer block, variegation in size across it, and treating the lintel over window separately, as a separate size, and the ongoing field. And it's all those simple little tricks. Doesn't take, well, I'm sure you're a brilliant architect, Alejandro, but it's really just takes care and being a good neighbor. And so I think, we all just appreciate good work and good detailing at a pedestrian level. So thank you.
This is a gateway to the city, and it's a key lot, as we used to say in the developments. It's a key lot, right? But I really appreciate what you've done there, and I think it's going to be a really attractive building. So when people do come into the city, it's going to be very, very alluring, and it'll be a landmark.
Agreed. And if you believe the landscaping plan, you won't see much of the building anyway. So.
I agree. This, as you said, Lloyd, this will be kind of a gateway, and it does. You gave a little more wow factor. I really appreciate you all taking our comments and coming back with something very, very viable and something aesthetically and visually pleasing for the city. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Anything else to add? Phil, did you have anything?
Nope, I agree with everything everyone else has said. I think it's a great project.
Great. I agree. And you've gotten the Matt Hopkins seal of approval, so I'm not sure we could go much deeper than that. All right. So good work, applicants team. Thank you very much for the thorough and thoughtful approach to addressing our concerns and coming back from it with a really nicely tied together scheme for the exterior. I think with that, we're ready for a motion. Anybody ready to make that?
Mr. Chairman, based on the exhibits submitted, the staff report, staff findings, and staff recommendations, I move that the Planning Commission grant SP 8250-2019 final plan approval, finding it in compliance with section 24-170 and 24-171 of the city's zoning ordinance, with the one condition is written to the record.
Second.
All right, Danny seconded. Commissioner Wessel?
Aye.
Commissioner Hopkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Kaufman?
Aye.
Commissioner Winborn?
Aye.
And I will vote aye as well, and that passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Looking forward to
Yes,
seeing
thanks.
that come out of the ground.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
to
you very
Jasmine.
much.
Thanks to Jasmine and Greg, and the excellent technical work of Brian and your tech team as well. So
Yeah. Best wishes for this project.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice work.
Thank you.
All right, short agenda tonight. So that takes us to from the commission. Phil, can I start with you, please?
You may. I don't have anything redeeming to add for the good of the order this evening. So.
Okay. Matt, anything tonight?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
All right, Lloyd.
John, I got a quick question regarding John Schlichting, that is, regarding licensing. We have a lot of lakes and a lot of people have been fishing in the lakes lately. Is there a fishing license that's required by the city?
Lloyd, you know, I got your email yesterday. I apologize. I was going to do a little research on that. I'm not aware of one, but I was going to look into it. And also the tree G label masks that
Very attractive.
starting to circulate. Yeah,
Those look cool. Lloyd,
Thank
just,
you, John.
just not an official answer, but the last we've been into kind of fishing the lakes around here, and we've always followed. It's been a state of Maryland Department of Natural Resources license. You get it online. It's real easy, but they seem to be the jurisdiction for.
I got to tell you,
I was going to say that I believe, Mr. Chairman, I believe you're right on that. That the city does not, for another reason. I was actually looking at something similar today, and that would be the answer.
Yeah,
I knew it wasn't the city.
We do allow it, but we don't have a license for it.
Yeah.
but you do need the state license if it's any kind of public water.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, very good. Where am I here? I guess, Danny, anything for you tonight?
No, thank you.
Did you want to mention again the State Planning Commissioners Conference topics and you made a kind of
thank you for that. If anyone has suggestions for topics for our MPCA, Maryland Planning Commissioners Association conference, and looks like our conference is going to probably be online. We're getting a lot of pushback from actually the conference center. Because of COVID-19, it looks like that conference center that we've selected may even be closing up. It's been really affecting, that. And I'm also on a consortium with different planning commissions and throughout jurisdictions in Virginia, Maryland, and DC, and they're looking at the same thing. So as we get further along and we make our final decision, which will probably come in about a month, I'll be coming back to you all with that information. But if you can think of anything or any other topics, and certainly shoot them my way. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right. From staff, John or Greg, do you want to jump in?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to give you a quick update on the state of the city. We did enter phase 1 on Monday. All the buildings are still closed to the public, or at least still locked. Employees can return gradually. Masks are required in all buildings at all times. We are still encouraging teleworking to the extent possible. If you're productive teleworking, then keep doing it. We're just trying to keep the population down to reduce the risk. The public can enter our buildings by appointment only right now during this phase 1 period. So, but that's probably not happening on the planning side because everything is productively happening virtually. So, and then we do anticipate entering phase 2 sometime in July, probably towards the beginning of July, but that's not official yet. That's when our buildings and City Hall will actually open to the public and we will begin to allow walk-ins. So that'll be a big step. And that's where we are right now. That's all.
I'm just curious, are you all actively doing building inspections at this point? Construction, okay.
We are. It won't be till phase 2 when we actually enter somebody's home. But we are doing on-site, outside building inspections. And inside inspections of new construction. New construction, yeah.
Great. Okay. Greg, how are things going with you tonight?
Good. For everyone's knowledge, obviously we sent an email out to the commission on August 19th, today, for a special meeting possibly on August 19th to facilitate the commission's recommendation for the 700 North Frederick sketch plan. I think I've heard back from all of you now, so I appreciate the quick responses. Once we make a determination, we'll let you know if we decide to schedule that meeting. And then the only other thing I have is our next planning commission meeting is Wednesday, July 1st.
Wow, July already. Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, everyone, please have a good evening, and we're adjourned.